The journey to wealth is a long walk, and some people may walk quicker than others. But what good is sprinting to the finish line if you pass out when you cross it? This is Walk to Wealth with your host, John Mendez. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Walk to Wealth podcast. If you're tuning in on YouTube or any of the podcast directories, make sure to do yourself one teeny tiny little favor and make sure to give us a follow, because I don't want you to miss out on any of the amazing guests I got coming on this year. Without further ado, the guest I have coming on today, I met back when I was still an active agent, if I'm not mistaken. So for anyone that's not familiar with the podcast, quite some years ago, it's been 2022 was when last time I actively focused in real estate. So we met, we kind of lost touch, and then we reconnected when I actually hop on the podcast. And so, Jamie, for anyone who hasn't had the opportunity, the pleasure to get to know you yet, to get to meet you, tell us your quick elevator pitch. Who are you and what do you do?
My name is Jamie Mason. I am sales manager at Annie Mac Home Mortgage. I offer all kinds of loan programs, first-time home buyer, down payment assistance to the savvy investors who really don't have the income on paper. We do a lot of those investor DSCR type of loans. I've been in the mortgage business for 23 years and I'm still here. So I guess this is it for me.
Amazing. So before we get into the mortgages and all that stuff, the first question I love asking my guests is, what is your definition of wealth?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, as far as for me, it's not always necessarily money. I think for me, it's an abundance of things, your health, your faith. Faith is a big part for me of having abundance of wealth. But then obviously too, you want to have some type of portfolio and, like investment planning and, whether you have, money tied up in stocks or retirement, and definitely real estate to help you with your walk to wealth.
Yeah, amazing. So you mentioned abundance, you mentioned faith, and you mentioned having some sort of, I guess, nest egg, you could say, or something like that, building up that you can sit back when it's all said and done and have, so that you don't have to work until you die, right?
Right.
So take us back in the time machine. What was little Jamie like? Were you always thinking about long term, about, having that nest egg or investing or stuff like that? What was little Jamie like growing up?
No, I look back and I want to kick myself because I got into the mortgage business. I was like 19 and it was insane back then. Like if you ever watched the movie The Big Short, I always tell people to watch that movie, The Big Short, because that is exactly how the industry was. And like, it's funny, they have like dancers like on there, like, oh, I need another house. But literally it was like that. Like you can get anybody, for the most part, was able to get a mortgage, with a little bit of money, no money down, not great credit. There was all kinds of programs out there that obviously, years later, the market crashed because of all of those said programs. But I still say to myself, I was living in the moment. I could have had a portfolio of, properties based on how easy it was back then. But no, I wasn't thinking. Young Jamie was just, who always wanted to have nice cars and the nice clothes and the labels. And I was just living in the moment. So no, at that time I didn't.
So take us back a little bit further. So you said at 19 you got into the mortgage business. So you probably were already out of high school. So take us back a little bit before that. So what were you like in grade school? Were you thinking about like side hustle? Were you thinking like, how did you get introduced into the real estate industry as a whole? Because that is a pretty young age to get, whether it's a mortgage lender, a real estate agent, like in general, that's a pretty early age to get into the real estate industry. So take us back before that. What kind of led up to that before graduating high school?
So my mom is in the business and she's
in the mortgage business.
She's in the mortgage business. She's an underwriter in the mortgage business. And though she was like, you don't want to do this as a career, because it's very demanding. It's very time consuming. It's very cutthroat. But if you're able to sustain those things, the rewards for the most part will outweigh because, like in my position, I have flexibility. I have young kids still. So if I need to run them to an appointment, if I need to, take an afternoon off because they have something at school, I could just do that. And I don't have to ask anybody, for permission. And so I always worked from like 16, because I always wanted to at least have my own money. I spent it all very quickly, but I always wanted to at least have my, own money and be able to, pay my, phone and car and all of that good stuff. So I was working at Circuit City, from like 16 to almost 19. And I don't know if you remember Circuit City, because you're a little bit younger than me. Yeah. So it's a gym now in the Trumbull Mall. It's now that gym at the Trumbull Mall, but that was Circuit City was an electronics store. And I literally, we got paid commission only. And I was young. So it was like, okay, so Christmas would come around and we just like ring up a bunch of, accessories and things like that, sold computers. And, so I kind of was always in sales, I guess. And, I got tired of that job and I went and I started working with my mom in the mortgage business.
Okay. You mentioned something in there that I want to dive deeper on, if you don't mind. You mentioned that you always got your own money, right? You work in jobs, but you spent it very quickly. What was your relationship with money like growing up?
I didn't grow up with like a ton of money. I would say we're probably middle class. But I would also say I really didn't struggle, either as a child, growing up and, into probably some of my, earlier 20s when I was taking care of myself. There have been times along the way where I've seen struggles, but I just I wasn't disciplined. I didn't have the discipline when it came to money.
Okay, so fast forward us a bit. So 19, you get into the mortgage industry. You start working with your mom. What was that like? A lot of people say, don't mix family and work or don't mix family and business or whatever. It could be a bad recipe. So what was like working with your mom and getting also into the mortgage space at a pretty early age?
Yeah, she was worried about that. She actually didn't really want me to come work with her because, she was well respected in her position and she didn't, if it didn't work out, she was concerned that, it would look bad on her, but it didn't. We really didn't have to work together. She was like a totally different department. So we really didn't have to like interact too much with each other. And on that job that I started, and then from there, I just kept going. That boss left and had gone to Countrywide, was still around at that time. And he took me with him and I had a couple different jobs on the wholesale side before the crash of 2007. So once the crash came, then that was like a whole nother ball game because you couldn't find work. If you were in the mortgage business, you just could not find work if you were on that wholesale side. So it was like a year and a half that I wasn't working before I finally started on what we call the retail side, which is what, the person that's actually taking the loan application and getting you through processing. I started that in 2009.
Okay, so take us through that time period. So you're in your early 20s, right? You just got into this industry, and now all of a sudden the industry is not the industry you signed up for. How did you manage to survive for that year and a half?
Well, I was collecting unemployment, but obviously, that's not enough to pay all the bills. So I bartended, on the side, I bartended, which bartending was great. It's great money. So that kind of helped me get through.
Okay, now so fast forward. So you get out of that, you survive the economic recession, and then you're back in the game. I'm curious as to, were there any thoughts of pivoting at any point in time during that? Like, why did you, if you don't mind me asking, what made you stick with mortgages? Like, I mean, it could be very easy to say, hey, this industry just completely crashed. Let me go get like an accounting job or something. Let me go get, something somewhere else in another industry that didn't crash.
I wasn't really interested, honestly, in anything.
Yeah.
I took accounting, a couple courses in college, and I hated it.
Okay.
For me. And when you're in a sales type of position, I mean, I guess you could go to other industries, on the say like pharmaceutical sales or something like that. But I don't know, nothing really interested me. And then I was just kind of, getting by, doing what I was doing and, making, bartending is pretty good money. You make it, in a night you make, God, some nights I probably made like $500. So I really didn't need to look at that point. And, I was young still. I think I was like 24. So I just kind of waited it out.
Yeah, no,
And yeah.
makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So now so the industry kind of like came back a little bit or started working its way back after '09, and then you got into the residential side. What was the process like from there? And tell us, where were you, for anyone that doesn't understand like the whole what's the difference between an underwriter and loan officer and whatever. What were you starting off at in '09 when you got back into the game?
I started processing and I hated that job too. So processing is part of, like the operations side. So your operations side of the mortgage business are your processors that gather all of the paperwork, upload them now into the system. I mean, back then it was paper, we had the paper files where you actually had copies of everything, but now the processors upload all the documents, get the file ready for the underwriter to actually look at everything and actually approve the file. So I did that for like 3 years, which I could not stand that job. It's a hard job too. That's another hot seat. It's a lot of pressure to get the loans done in time so that you're able to be clear to close for whatever the contracted closing date is when you're buying a house. But I'm not the most organized. And so that was not for me. I could solve problems. I think I fix almost any problem that comes up during the loan process on my end. But it was a great stepping stone, though, for me to get into this position because I understand the whole entire process in and out. I know what to do if that person is not there. I could press my own files for, if I needed to. So I think it really helped me become a successful loan officer because I had the whole entire internal piece down. And then I, decided to move to the sales side.
Okay, so cool. So you were in the operations side still, and then you made the transition. What was it like? Because if I'm not mistaken, you go from W-2 to 1099 when you make that switch, if I'm not mistaken, correct? Or...
No, we're still W-2 as a loan officer for the most
Okay.
part, unless you're like a broker. And then you're kind of considered self-employed, and then you would receive a 1099. But I work for a company. Annie Mac is a national company, and I get a W-2. It's just that it's commission income.
Oh, okay. And so if you don't close any loans, then there's nothing coming in pretty much.
That's right. You make no money.
You eat what you catch.
Honey.
Yeah, okay, cool. So what was that transition like going from, again, the processing side to the sales side of everything, taking on all that extra responsibility, that extra burden? What was kind of going through your mind as you were making that decision, if you could kind of just go back to that period of your life?
It was hard, but I'm a risk taker.
When did you realize that?
Young.
Okay.
I always lived on the edge. That's a topic for a whole nother day. We're not talking about that part, but I always lived on the edge. I was never scared of things. I took a lot of risks. And so I had my son. And of course, while I was on maternity leave, they had to find a replacement to process. And so when I came back, it was like, all right, are you ready, to come to this side? And, and from getting a normal paycheck and then thinking, oh my God, I have this new baby and, is this the right move for me? But I was working under some very successful people. They're actually my cousins. So I was processing for them. And then it was like, okay, it's time for you to come over here. And I took that leap. And at first, my pay structure was a little different. There was a small base salary over there. And then it was kind of like overrides on a couple different people's productions because we were a team. So it wasn't as scary as like being on your own. When I finally took that jump to leave there and come on my own, then I was 100% commission, but I was ready.
Yeah. But you had some sort of stability when you made that initial switch into the sales role, and you kind of faced with like, hey, your old position kind of got taken up while you were gone. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we had to get a replacement. Yeah. And now it's like, hey, you got to go to this side. And so you kind of made the jump, which is dope. And then from there, how many years was it till from going to the sales side, starting off that, till you went on your own to where you're kind of doing right now?
14 years.
14 years. So you were with the team for 14 years?
I was with that team for 14 years. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And then before that, how long? So you were probably in the mortgage business almost 20 years before you finally went on your own, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah,
About
right.
20
About
years.
20 years.
And you went on your own during the pandemic, if I'm not mistaken, right? If I remember.
No,
It was right
during the
before?
pandemic, after the
Right after the
pandemic.
pandemic. Okay, that's what I remember.
Mhm.
Okay, cool. So that's around when we finally met. So I guess to bring us kind of closer to present day, when we originally met, was it what? 2022 is when we met, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I think
Um,
so. Yeah.
where were you at that point in time for anyone that's listening?
As far as what company or
No, just in
just,
general, like with the whole loan officer journey that you were on.
yeah, it was do or die. It was do or die for me because I, made a huge change. I was very comfortable where I was, but I also didn't have my name. I didn't have
Hmm.
my name. We were very successful. It wasn't that the money wasn't great because it was. But after so many years, and I never thought that I wanted to go and venture out and actually be the face, because I just was the internal piece of a big part of their process in, still doing the same thing, still taking all the call, getting all the loans in, getting all the loans done, but you really didn't see my name, you didn't see my face, and you didn't see the production numbers under my name, which I didn't care initially. But towards the end, it was, all right, now it's time for me to actually build my own name, not necessarily a team. I don't know still to this day if that's something that I even want, but build myself up. So it was do or die for me. We were coming out of the pandemic, and that was when the rates, because the pandemic for the mortgage business was on fire. Like, it was probably the best years that we've all ever had, as far as, because we were still doing our thing and people were just buying houses. That didn't
Yeah,
stop the
signing
real
friggin'
estate world.
2% interest rates. Everyone was getting a loan, and
Yeah,
this time they were a lot more
mid
qualified.
to high to, right. And then overnight, after that, we were kind of out of that. Overnight, it was kind of everything happened at the same time. I made the decision, which was a very hard decision. It was like a life decision for me, and it was very hard to give that notice. But that was going on, and I didn't see the turn coming in the market. So rates were still pretty good. They weren't 2 or 3, but they were probably still, somewhere around 4. And I made this jump. I came to a company that really wasn't too heard of in Connecticut. And so I was starting over at a company that did not have a big name. And I did that on purpose because I kind of wanted to build it out and just kind of have the territory that I wanted without 25 other loan officers. So I purposely did that. But at the same time, it was like, okay, now you got to be everywhere. You have to still do all your loans, but you have to be everywhere because nobody knows this company. People do know me, they know me, but I had to go out and build my own business. I wasn't going to go and still take, the business that, wasn't exactly mine, even though over the years it grew to be mine, but I had to start all over. And then the rates completely went up, and here I am trying to build my name, and, the market was just not good. So
Yeah.
it was do or die.
So,
Do or die.
if you don't mind going a little bit deeper into your decision making,
What if one tool was all you need to start your business and make your first 6 or 7 figures? See, I was never entrepreneurial growing up. And after starting my first business, I spent the first 2.5 years completely lost. Nothing worked for me until I found Kajabi. See, if you offer coaching, courses, if you have a private community, if you want to start a podcast, a newsletter, a blog, if you have a membership community, Kajabi has you covered. They have everything you need to start, scale, and sustain your business all in one. So I want to offer you a free strategy session where we'll talk about your business, your goals, and how Kajabi can help you. All you have to do is use the link in the description, and as an extra bonus, I'll get you a free 30-day trial to test out Kajabi. Normally, they only offer 2 weeks, so hurry up, click the link in the description. With that being said, let's get right back into this episode.
Process. So you were with this team, for anyone listening to tracking with us, she's on this team for 14 years. She's coming out of probably the best real estate market of existence. That's also when I got my real estate license, so I know firsthand how it was going. But yeah, so like for anyone that's listening, yeah, 2020 into 2022, before that rate hike was freaking absolutely nuts in the real estate market. No matter where you at, prices jumped everywhere. And for anyone that's listening, in Connecticut, prices are already high and they jumped. So it's like, the mortgages here, it's not like Texas, you're getting homes for 200,000. You're getting homes here for 4, 5, 6, 7, 800,000. And if you're in the luxury or like lower Fairfield County for freaking $1 million minimum, were loans. So people are signing jumbo loans like it's nothing, and super jumbo loans. So yeah, it was a great time. And then on top of that, you're also thinking of pivoting out of that, and you have an unexpected marketing turn down the corner that you can't see yet. So it's like, what was kind of like that decision-making process? And walk us through like putting in that 2-week notice. 'Cause I know for me, 2023 is when I left my job. I was at a restaurant myself. I think I might have told you back when last we caught up. I was working at Sign the Whale, and I remember driving over after having the best day, the best lunch of my existence. And I was like, this is the moment I've been waiting for until the drive over. And I'm just like, oh crap. Like I'm actually about like, how do I even, that was my first real job. I never even, long story short, I got fired from one job. I was a dishwasher in college. That's a story for another day. But, this is my first ever job. And I put in a 2 weeks notice for like my job at K Jewelers, but like there was no real like sentimental value there. Like that restaurant took me through into early adulthood. Like that, that helped me turn into the person I am today. You learn a lot working in the restaurant industry about people, about yourself, about dealing with all these different personalities, and oh my goodness, about alcohol as well. Like you learn a lot about a lot of different things. And I still remember that drive. It was so awkward. Like, and then talking to my manager, like, hey, the entrepreneurship thing, it's kind of like kicked off a little bit. And I remember stuttering over my words, and I'm pretty well spoken, but like, yeah, I couldn't get a proper sentence out. I kept stuttering, and finally asked him for that 2 weeks. And he was like, you know what? I didn't make the schedule yet for the next couple of coming weeks. Like, if you could work whatever is on your schedule for this week, I just won't add you for the following. And so that was very odd conversation for me, but it was like, to your point, do or die. Like, if it's not now, then when, right? If I'll just keep on waiting forever for the perfect moment. And I'm glad I did make the leap. Life hit me with a crazy curveball in 2024, which is a story for another day. But I'm glad I made the jump when I did, because if not, I probably would have still been clinging on and never going all into myself. So walk us through kind of like that decision-making process for yourself again. You've been with the team 14 years, you're processing, you're doing numbers, you're coming out of one of the best markets in history, probably the best market ever, and now you're thinking about going on your own. So to walk us through, like, what was that decision-making process like for you?
It was the hardest. It was one of the hardest decisions in my whole entire life, and we're related. Let's not forget that.
You're cousins, right? You're cousins.
Related.
And you also already are parenting at this point, so it's not like you're on your own anymore. Like, you have little ones to consider, right?
Two, yeah. I turned 40, and I went to DR. I was in DR for my 40th, and I had an epiphany, and I really do think that 40 is an age. It is an age of like awakening. I swear. I literally was like, it's my time. I have to do this for me. But it was months, and it was anxiety and, palpitations and all kinds of stuff for like a couple of months leading up to actually, when you're in the mortgage business, there's no such thing as a 2-week notice. You quit because they don't keep you anyway. You're going to get shut off from the system the same day because, in fear that, you're going to pull all your files or, take all the customers. I mean, there's all kinds of non-compete stuff that we sign also. So literally you quit. You don't give a 2-week notice. I had to literally walk in, to people that I care about and are related to, but I had to do it like any other way. Like there was no, hey, I'm going to leave in a couple weeks. It was, this is it. So, and then I bawled my eyes out like a baby, but she took it better than I thought was going to happen. She was actually very graceful about it. I think she understood. And we still talk now, to this day. We still are, in communication, and, it was time.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that you were able to leave amicably. I feel like again, this business, real estate business, like you get to know these people like again, this is like we're dealing with a lot of money here in real estate, and when money is involved, like you see people's
Hmm.
true character very quickly, and so like
Yeah.
you get really close to people you get close to, and then again add the fact that you guys are already family on top of that,
Hmm.
which makes it even more complicated. But I'm glad that you were able to both make peace with that decision and not have it be some weird awkward situation where it's like, oh, you screwed me over or whatever, because it could be very easy, especially when
Yeah.
again coming off a great market. It's like you're gonna leave me at the peak or whatever.
Yeah.
But okay, now fast forward to today. It's been 3 years since we last caught up. Bring us
Hmm.
up to speed with where's Jamie's at now. Jamie's on her own process, doing loans.
Yeah.
She's a part of a couple organizations. Bring us up to speed where how that decision turned out for you.
Yeah, I think I'm doing well. In considering what market we are in, I mean, it's not the best that I've done, but I don't think any of us are doing what we've done, in COVID and some prior years. But it is nothing more than hard work. I work my butt off. Like I work all the time. I'm working on the weekends. I'm working at night. Going to functions. I'm part of NAREP, and NAREP really helped me pivot my business because we had the best of the best realtors working with us, Fairfield County, all of Shelton, Monroe, like all of those from Easton, all those surrounding areas, they had the best of the business. And when I left, I had to pivot and I had to go out there and start from the bottom up because I never wanted, anybody to say I took anything or I didn't take anything with me. I didn't take any customers with me. I didn't do any of that. I literally started over after 14 years. I started over and I had to be out there. So NAREP was a whole other untapped market that we really weren't doing business with. And a lot of the people I went to, because I'm from Bridgeport. So
Mm.
like I went to high school with a lot of the people that are in the real estate market or just, know from, all of us being from, the same city. And so I started, reuniting with people again and, sponsoring a ton of events just to put my name out there. And at the same time, just really making sure that the loans that are coming in are getting dealt with the right way. And I think your experience um, has to do almost 100% with the loan officer. You can be at a good company, but if the loan officer is not so involved with the process, then you have two totally different experiences within the same company. You can go to a big
Mhm.
name company and have a great experience with one loan officer and terrible experience with the other, just by the way that we do our job.
Yeah,
So
no, 100%. And so now that we're kind of up to speed with Jamie, the journey, where we are today, one of the things you mentioned to pivot a little bit earlier in your definition of wealth is faith. And so I want to pivot to the topic of faith for a second.
yeah,
Um, when did that really become a pillar for you and your life and business and everything?
just these past couple of years, to be honest. I mean, I grew up Catholic,
Yeah.
went to Catholic school my whole life, but I never really paid attention. I didn't really care for the Catholic Church. I, kind of was bored to death going there, and I kind of just had to go because we were in school, so we had to go. And I think once I
Yeah.
graduated high school, I never went to a Catholic church ever again. I mean, nothing against the Catholic religion. I did all my sacraments and everything, but then I kind of just strayed, into my teenage years and early 20s and even 30s. I just was far away from God. And then, on and off, I would go to Christian churches, but never really fully committed until I think
Mhm.
about these last 3 years. So I go to a lot of, I don't know if you are familiar with who Lillian is. She does a lot of events. And every year she does this goal setting event. And so 3 years ago, I think this coming up will actually be 4 years. She it's all around faith, family, fitness, and finances.
Mhm.
And so for the faith, you have to do each part. And so for the faith piece, I just put as a goal that I was going to go to church every Sunday. And so at first, it was just kind of a goal for me. Like, okay, I said I'm going to do this, and I'm going to tithe, and I'm going to, I had these goals, and I was just kind of systematically doing it as a goal. But, the more you go and then, joining like community groups, and it becomes a way of life. And so I belong to Vox Church. There's many campuses to Vox right now, New Haven, but we're going to be, we will have a Seymour location, or a Valley location is what we consider it. And yeah, it's a big part of, everything I do. I kind of, have the outlook on it first now, God at the center.
No, that's amazing. I'm curious, have you found your life verse yet?
My what? My life
Your,
verse?
yeah. Are you familiar with that term?
No.
It's not like a crazy buzzword, but pretty much like the verse that like is your core verse, like that one verse that
No.
like just really hits you.
No, I don't.
I'll say I'll share
There's many
mine.
that I
So
like, but I don't have
you don't have
the
one?
verse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
share mine. Mine kind of came um back in high school. I used to always get my wrist taped before football games. And I think it was maybe my sophomore year, I want to say. I don't remember what year it was anymore, which sucks, but they're kind of blurred together. But one of those years, I think it was either sophomore year or junior year, I think it was. Um, I remember I used to get the daily Bible verses on the Bible app. And
Mm-hmm.
one day it came across Colossians 3:17, and it was, in everything you do, whether in word or in deed, do it for uh, the Lord Jesus Christ and give thanks to God the Father. And I was like, that's tough. And so I wrote it down. I didn't write the whole verse. I just wrote the Colossians 3:17 on my wrist. And like that game, I think I had a good game if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, and pretty much I think it might have been junior year. And then from there, I just would write it on my wrist every single time. It was so interesting
Yeah.
because like I would see all these preachers give their testimonies. They always had that one verse that like, and I was just like, damn, like when do I achieve that? Like when do I get my life verse? When is it gonna come to me? And I kind of that one really resonated with me. And I think it's one of those things where my senior English teacher, he asked this one question. He would go on random philosophical tangents for whatever reason. Had nothing to do with our curriculum, but I remember one time he asked, like, do you have faith or are you blindly believing? And I started going to church around third grade. And I would always go. I was super involved in like church programs and youth programs and freaking monologues and singing. And I did a bunch of youth retreat. Like I was heavily involved in
Yeah.
church growing up. And then that was the first time I ever really questioned what I believed and why I was believing it. And I think that was a very pivotal moment for me. Then the pandemic, I went away to college. I never really, I want to say I really backtracked. I just got very complacent. I stopped really going to church, and for the most part, I never stopped believing. I just never made time for it in my schedule. I started working and went to college. The pandemic happened. And then when I came out of the pandemic, I went still working. So Sundays, I was always busy working at the restaurant. And then, similar to you, for whatever reason, around 2024, I was like, or going into 2024, me and my sister was like, yo, we gotta get right. And we did committed to just go to church every Sunday. And so
Yeah.
pretty much all 2024 started going to church, and as long as I wasn't traveling, I pretty much was always there. And then this year, I had this the pleasure of interviewing this lady called Rosemary. She's a realtor out of Dallas, and
Hmm.
she just like after every question I asked her, like found a way to bring God into it. And not like in a cringy, like forceful way. Like, you know
Mm-hmm.
how sometimes you talk to an author and they're like, oh, but in my book, whatever, whatever, it wasn't like that at all. It was like very genuine and just her faith. And it was just so inspiring. I tell her this all the time, but like, I was like, yeah, I got to get right. And I think I interviewed her, and then I started listening to this one sermon, and he was talking about leaning not on your own understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I was like, yeah, I got to stop being a once a week Christian. Like, I can't
Yeah.
be doing this part time and expecting for God to really be at the center and bless me with the things I'm asking Him to bless me with. And so a little bit of a tangent, but that's kind of like how it all played out for me. And that was like the biggest wake up call that I definitely needed to have. And I'm glad that you mentioned faith, because I think it's something that a lot of people lead with. It's something that kind of like we get taught in real estate. Never talk about religion and politics. Like those are two things you can never talk about.
Yeah, they do say that, and I never used to, I think, until I really was on the other side. And I
Mm-hmm.
think when you arrive there, you don't waver
Mm-hmm.
what you believe in just for business. And so, I'm not like crazy. I don't do Facebook. I have a Facebook because I have to for business, but I don't use it like ever. And
Yeah.
I don't get involved in any of that stuff. But if there's like a scripture or if there's, something, going on in the world, and I will put something in my story, and I don't waver on my faith. But now I'm going to figure out what my life verse is, because I don't have, there's a
Yeah.
lot that I love, like right behind me on that little, plaque over there. It's the
Mm-hmm.
God is within her, she will not fail. But I don't have the
The life verse.
verse.
It's
So
one of those things that it'll hit
yeah,
you randomly. Like
yeah,
this one speaks to me, and for whatever reason, like you find that. And I've never been good at future casting, I guess you could say, right? I got into One day I got into college, and then the next year I'm in a pandemic, and then next thing you know, I'm in studying for my real estate classes, and next thing you know, I'm doing social media classes, and then next thing you know, I'm in AI, and so like I've never really been good at like projecting what I want this all to look like. But this past literally yesterday, I was doing last week I went to a Christian business owner like boardroom masterminds type of style event. It was maybe like
wow.
5 of us. One guy has like 120 employees. Another guy is starting a hedge fund. Another guy has an asset management company, has a couple family offices. So some pretty like high end, like upper, more established business owners. And plus the advisor, who's he's not active in the business space anymore, but like has earned his stripes during his heyday. But talking with them and just seeing how they go about thinking about business, stuff like that. And the topic for that mastermind was your mission, vision, and values. And the verse that they kind of centered around was, I think, it's Proverbs 16 something. I forget, but it's Proverbs. Is where there's no vision, the people perish. And I was like, damn, like I really haven't had a vision for for the podcast. Surprisingly, I've always had a vision for what I wanted to do with this podcast. It's never been my main focus because, again, I love doing this. It has nothing to do with my actual business stuff, but for my AI stuff, which is what everyone knows me for nowadays, I never took the time to really like.
For another day.
We can talk about that after, but for the AI business, I never really ever thought about like, where am I going with this? Like I said, I want to be the number one AI coach. Never really thought much about it. I'm like, all right, I want to be the best. Cool. But I never really had a vision until yesterday, sitting through the material. And I'll read to you my mission, vision, and value. Hold on. Let me see if I could find it. Let me see if I got it here with me. There we go. Because I think it's very important to take some time to sit through for anyone that's listening, especially if you're on the newer side of entrepreneurship. Because if you get tunnel vision and get to work and never look up, you could be miles off course from where you originally wanted to. And so like it's important to know where you want to go. Because for me, again, it's like I just been kind of going with the opportunities that have presented themselves and just kind of like just been go. We'll figure it out later.
Right.
And then I got to a point where like, well, am I even enjoying what I'm building? Like, yes, the opportunities are great, and if I'm not building something I love, what's the point in building it anyways? Like I got into entrepreneurship to live a life by design, not a life that I hate, that I have to run from or need breaks from. If that were the case, I would have just got a job. It's a lot easier and a lot safer and a lot more stable, But all right, I got it for you because I literally just came up with this yesterday. So you're the first person to hear this, right? My mission statement. Stop and Stare Media is an AI and marketing strategy firm, and we exist to make sure business owners never get replaced by AI. That is my mission statement. That's why I exist. My vision statement is to be the most trusted firm in real estate, helping businesses future-proof their success in the new AI economy. And then my values, I won't get into like the whole paragraphs, but I'll just read the quick Cliff Notes version. The one is faith is the foundation, character over cash, implementation over information, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. They all kind of rhyme, didn't realize. And then human first, AI second. But like just getting a little bit more clarity again as to where I'm going with everything. And then that Bible verse, sorry, kind of went all over the place. But I've been spending a lot of time this past week, just like really, and this past month, really, just figuring out like what is it that I want to build moving forward. I got my foundation set. I got a lot of momentum. People know me for AI now, but like, all right, as we close this year, and more importantly, get into business planning for next year, I got to be a lot more intentional with this stuff, or else I'm gonna get burnt out. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm
You're
going.
over cash. I like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people think of selling their soul as some ritualistic, satanic, performance or whatever. And it's like, nah. Selling your soul is doing anything that you wouldn't normally do for some sort of gain. It could be fame, it could be money, it could be, most of the time it's money, but again, it could be exposure, it could be a promotion, but like compromising your character for something. One of my favorite quotes is, if you stand for nothing, you fall for anything.
Yes.
And a lot of people, are another one. And I got a bunch of quotes. A friend to everyone is an enemy to thyself is another one I love. A lot of times people would just, I don't have the energy nor the time to save face. Like if it's the opportunity is not for me, God bless you, but the ones that are, may God set them aside for me and point me in that direction. Right. Cause we don't need every opportunity. We just need the right ones for us.
Right.
And so, yeah, but, a little bit of a tangent. Anyways, back to the main focus, Jamie. Where can we connect with you? Where can we find you at if we want to just keep up with your journey? If we wanted to get a loan, and get pre-approved, like where can we find you at and get in touch with you for anything Jamie related?
Yeah, I think the best for me is Instagram. I'm big on the Instagram more than any other platform. So it's loans_with_Jamie, Jamie. And I try to put some content on there. I try to do informational videos on there, as programs are changing, or if there's something that, I find is valuable to someone, I'll do a video on it. And my website and all of those hyperlinks are on there too.
Amazing. Now it's time for my famous 5 questions. Same 5 questions I ask every single guest. Question number 1 is, what is the most impactful lesson you've learned in life?
Putting me on the spot. Can we skip that one and come back to it?
Fine. We'll come back to it. Question number 2 is, what is the most admirable trait a person can have?
I think honesty, and like you said, not giving up, who you are just to make a quick dollar, your character, a man or a woman of their word, too, being able to carry out what you say you're going to do is very important.
If you had to change someone's life but only had one book to recommend, which would it be?
I don't know, Atomic Habits.
Okay, that's a good one. That's a New York Times bestseller, so that's not a bad answer. All right, back to question number 1. Yeah. What is the most impactful lesson you've learned in life?
I guess, probably that money isn't everything, because I've had a whole lot and I've had a whole little, in different times of my life. And so I think now, it's really just that, things are way more important. Your family, your faith, and just being comfortable and happy. It's not all about shiny, fancy, materialistic things.
What is the legacy that you're working on leaving behind?
Well, so for my children, they don't want to have anything to do with what I do for a living. They watch me day in and day out. But I am definitely mindful on wealth building. I have a really great financial advisor that, helps me, so that, God forbid anything happen, or just later on in life, my kids will be comfortable. But also back to the faith, I, have them also really involved in the church and community groups and things of that nature, because I think it's so important, and especially in the times that we're living in, to understand and have that faith. And so, obviously leaving them comfortable as far as finances are concerned, with different investments in real estate and all of that, but also that they have their faith, and it's a part of, our routine. It's not just, once a week on Sunday. I try to, have that group community either Wednesday or Thursday, and, just talking about it, and, hoping that they pick up a Bible and read it, and, all of that.
Yeah, no, I think I can only speak from my experience being a young man and continuing my relationship with God, throughout elementary, middle, high, and into college and beyond. As an adult now, like, it is so important, and there's so few, and like bringing them up early in the church. I thank God. I had a family friend invite me to church. I live in the project, so like I was on the third floor. One of the ladies at the end by the staircase, her daughter invited me to church, and I'm so glad. It was a Friday. I think I ended up going. We played some. At that time, that's when the GameCube was still big, so it was years ago. So we played some Mario Kart and some other, I think, some fighting game, Naruto, like fighting game, and then they gave us pizza and potatoes, like some youth Bible lesson or whatever. I don't remember what we talked about, but going to church changed everything for me. I don't know how everything would have turned out had I not ever been invited. So good for them for being young and bringing them up in the church and bringing up in the ways of God, because it's very easy to stray off, especially in this day and age. And like, it's also, especially as a young man, like being rooting in something. If you're not, you're pretty much just going to be living a hedonistic life and being all over the place. So, but yeah, that's just, again, that could be a whole separate conversation. But final question before we split. For anyone that wants to embark on their walk to wealth today, what is the first step you recommend they take?
Well, I do believe that, you need to have some sort of retirement income. Some people think that, a 401k or, a Roth is, not as important, and you should be investing in other things. I feel like you should have a variety of different vessels. So I do believe if you are a W-2 person, I do believe in a 401k. It's very important, and you could always, borrow against it if you ever need it, or if you want to take money out of it to purchase a house, especially if you're younger and you have built up a good chunk in there. It's not going to, hurt you so much to take a little bit out as a down payment for a house. But I believe in having a variety, not just all your eggs in one basket. So 401k or some type of IRA, and real estate. We're in a weird climate, in the market, real estate enough to know that, things are still pretty expensive. Rates are still high, but if you can afford to do it, there's plenty of tools out there to do it. If you're a first-time home buyer, there's a time to own program, which still giving up to $25,000 towards your down payment and closing costs, so you don't have to break the bank if you qualify for something like that. If you're somebody who's adventurous or just handy and you're okay with being a landlord, I always say that the first property should be a multifamily if you can stomach that. Not everybody can, people don't want to deal with tenants, and I get it, but you can literally, buy a 3-family home with very little down or almost nothing down, and the rents, as long as you have good tenants, will be paying that mortgage, and, you're kind of just able to stash that money. And even as an investor, even though things are high and the market is high, it's all about the cash flow, right? Who cares really about what the rate is? Who cares what the price is that you're buying it for? If the cash flow is going to be positive, it's a good investment. And so I just feel like, you have to have a variety of things for wealth, but real estate is definitely something that should be a part of that package.
100%. Jamie, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Thank you for sharing your life stories, your lessons, and some of the things you learned along the way. For anyone tuning in, thank you so much. And I'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for tuning in to the Walk to Wealth podcast. There's an old African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. So make sure to hit that subscribe or follow button so we can continue on our journey to wealth together. And again, I'm your host, John Mendez, and I'll see you on the next episode.